Part 5. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 41. Chapter 41 Peizian's New Tricks. After saying a few words, Xiaoling started to get angry and didn't want to be in the same room with him. She said good night to him stiffly, returned to the guest room, got into bed, and continued to sleep. Probably because of drinking hot milk, this time, tiredness quickly came over me, my consciousness was hazy, and I fell asleep without realizing it. No nightmares. The next day, when I opened my eyes, it was already bright, and the sunlight filtered in through the carved curtains, making it peaceful and warm. She hadn't slept so peacefully for a long time. She got up to wash up, put on a valuable new dress, took care of her long and scattered hair, and walked out of the guest room. There was no one in the living room, but there was a noise in the kitchen. She walked over and saw that it was Tan Ying, the general manager of the training camp, who was wearing an apron and busy at the cooking table. The boss went out temporarily for something. Tan Ying was not surprised when he saw her. "Tell me to pick you up and prepare breakfast." He didn't ask her why she was in Li Lei's apartment. He thought Li Lei had already treated him. Said something. Xiaoling looked at him in a daze as he held up a pan and skillfully fried eggs. "You Tianyi people, all have this hobby?" she asked in awe. "What do we call people from Tianyi?" Tan Ying rolled her eyes angrily. "You too then," with a look of bitterness and hatred on his face. "It's not that everyone in Tianyi has this hobby, it's just that with this, if you get along with a perverted boss for a long time, you will be forced to have this hobby." He ferociously moved the fried eggs onto the plate. Xiaoling looked at the perfectly golden fried eggs on the white disc and recalled the scene when Li Lei forced her to cook yesterday. She couldn't help but shudder secretly and made up her mind to stay as far away from that perverted maniac as possible in the future. "Have you washed your face and brushed your teeth?" Tan Ying asked. "It's late and breakfast will be cold." "It's done," Xiaoling responded and stepped forward to help Tan Ying squeeze the fruit juice and put the sushi on the plate. "Mr. Tan, since you don't like to cook breakfast, why don't we go out to eat?" Speaking of this, Tan Ying became even more bitter and resentful. "The pervert said that these are fresh ingredients sent from the villa. Eat them as soon as possible to live up to the delicious food." Xiaoling. Well, she was not the one forced to make breakfast anyway. She sat down and ate in a good mood. After breakfast, Tan Ying tidied up the kitchen, and Xiaoling went back to the guest room to simply pack her luggage. Afterwards, the two of them went back to the training camp. A lot of security guards have been deployed in the training camp. Tan Ying looked at her. "Yes, Yingling, the boss asked me to tell you that as long as you are on Tianyi's territory, no one can use force to kidnap you, but that's all." She understood what he meant. This means that Li Lei will no longer interfere in the dispute between Peizian and her. As for protecting the safety of the training camp, this is not to help her, but to fulfill the duties of a big boss. She nodded. "Mr. Tan, I understand." Tan Ying glanced at her. "I heard from the boss about you. I'm surprised that the Emperor's Peidong has taken a liking to you." He didn't worry about whether his words would hurt anyone, so he continued, "Yes. For someone like you, submitting to him is a good way out, but if you actually resist, you will only suffer the consequences." "Are you trying to convince me?" She looked at Tan Ying quietly. Tan Ying said nonchalantly, "I'm just giving you a piece of advice. Peizian is not someone who will give up easily." After he finished speaking, he put her down in the car at the door of the dormitory building and walked away. In fact, Tan Ying didn't need to remind her, she also knew how scary Peizian was. In the following days, Xiaoling stayed in the training camp honestly, never leaving the gate, and only practiced singing and dancing alone. Occasionally, I have a phone call with Wei Shaiyan to talk about some of my recent thoughts on music. Life seems peaceful and uneventful. But she was always worried in her heart. She didn't know what tricks Peizian would use. She still couldn't sleep well at night, and had that nightmare over and over again. Those chaotic past events troubled her all the time, but they were so shocking and secretive that they actually no one can speak. In the end, I can only let them continue to rage in my heart, waking up every night and shrinking until dawn. The holidays are over, and the trainees are returning to the camp one after another. There is more popularity in the dormitory, which also makes Xiaoling feel at ease. Not long after, Tanying called him to the office. Pushing open the door, she saw someone sitting on the sofa opposite him. Wearing a dark gray suit, a diagonal striped tie, and a crocodile leather briefcase at hand, the retro texture seems to be flowing with a cold luster. It is Chu Chen. When things came to pass, she was no longer afraid. What should come has finally come. Xiaoling looked at Chu Chen expressionlessly. Tell me what your master wants. Chu Chen looked at her and smiled. Yes, Yingling, the Emperor is very optimistic about your potential and plans to invite you to transfer to the Emperor. Her heart thumped. She had thought about many possibilities beforehand, including threats and inducements. She thought she was not afraid of them, but she didn't expect that they would directly remove her from the cauldron and transfer her to the Emperor. Cuisine. He couldn't help but look at Tanying. Mr. Tan. The Emperor's offer is very generous, Tanying said. I have no reason to refuse. But you clearly know why they want me. Xiaoling was angry and pointed at Chu Chen. Also, he is not the person in charge of the Emperor's training camp, so what qualifications does he have to talk to you about this? Yingling. Chu Chen interrupted the conversation between her and Tanying, still smiling. My boss has given me full authority to handle all matters related to you. His confident appearance finally made her unable to bear it any longer, and new and old hatred surged into her heart. She turned to look at him and spoke harshly and sarcastically. Chu Chen, it seems that you are doing well after Xiaoling's death? It was really unfair for you to be her manager before. With your talent, you should be a servile maid and flatter her and deal with things for your master. These dirty things. His expression changed when she scolded him, and he became angry. However, he still cared about his status and was unwilling to have a verbal dispute with a little person like her. Chu Chen looked at Tanying with a stern face. Mr. Tan, take care of your people. I will be yours soon. Tanying smiled, and then Xiaoling said, Yes, Yingling, I only consider the issue from Tianyi's point of view. I am not interested in the personal grudges between you, and I don't care. Within the scope of responsibilities. His tone is very formulaic. Xiaoling choked, knowing that he was right. It was her fault. Trying to calm down, she controlled her emotions. So, Mr. Tan, this matter has been settled. According to the procedure, you have 3 days to consider it, Tanying said. But I must remind you that no matter what the result of your consideration is, the final decision lies with the training camp. In other words, the matter has been decided. They are not discussing it with her, but just informing her of the result. Xiaoling stopped talking nonsense and turned around to leave the office. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 42. Chapter 42, I have the final say in the training camp. In the corridor, the early spring wind carried a refreshing chill. At the end of get out of class, Xiaoling was walking slowly in the corridor alone. There were trainees passing by in 2s and 3s talking and laughing. She looked so relaxed and happy that no one paid her even a single glance. She just felt at a loss. She needs someone who can help her solve the imminent crisis, and that person cannot be Lilei, and she is not willing to trade her body with him anyway. She stopped, leaned against the outer wall of the teaching building, closed her eyes, and sorted through all the people she knew in her mind. Finally, I found someone I could turn to. She rummaged through her bag, took out her mobile phone, and dialed Wei Shaiyin's number. Mr. Wei, do you have time now? I need your help. Wei Shaiyin asked her to meet at a cafe near the training camp. The music in the cafe was soft. He wore a white silver shirt, buttoned to the collar meticulously, and it was impeccably clean and tidy. She sat down opposite him, asked for a glass of warm water, held it in her hand, and while sorting out her thoughts, she recounted what had happened recently, choosing only the important ones. In summary, the emperor wanted her to transfer there, and Tan Ying agreed to rest assured, but she not willing. As for Pei Xian's thoughts on her, she really didn't want to mention it. After Wei Shaiyin listened, he pondered for a moment and called Tan Ying. He pressed the hands-free button. Why are you so crazy that you want to sell Xiaoling? On the other end of the phone, Tan Ying was silent for a moment, and then said, Wei, are you talking about Ye Xingling's transfer? This little girl really doesn't make people worry. Why did she come to complain to you? Wei Shaiyin looked impatient. Don't interrupt me, Tan Ying, you just came to ask me for my opinion during the annual evaluation. I told you then that Xiaoling deserves to be cultivated well, and with time she will definitely become a success. Daki. After just a few days of talking, you turned around and let her go to the emperor. The conditions offered by the emperor are very good, Tan Ying said calmly. Two trainees who are already preparing for their debut, the emperor's top newcomers in the past 5 years, will be exchanged for Ye Xinling. In addition, and also paid a huge transfer fee, and gave us a column in the major media next year. Wei Shaiyin was startled for a moment. The conditions are so good. When I sell people, I will naturally get a good price, Tan Ying said. Wei Shaiyin calmed down and became angry. Are you stupid? They dare to offer such outrageous conditions. Doesn't it just mean that Xiaoling has extraordinary potential? Even the emperor can see it and rushes to her away. You just let it go. Tan Ying was also angry. You are a pig. How many years have I been selling people? Don't I have this kind of discernment? Wei Shaiyin, how dare you question my professionalism? Do you know why the emperor offers high prices? Why don't you take a fancy to her potential? It's Boss Pei who takes a liking to her. If it weren't for the phone call, Xiaoling could almost imagine him spitting on Wei Shaiyin and Xing's face full of saliva. Obviously, Wei Shaiyin also felt his anger and leaned back with a look of disgust. After a moment of silence, he looked at Xiaoling in surprise. Then he spoke to the phone again. What did you just say? Pei Xian has a crush on Xiaoling. I find it incredible, Tan Ying said, calming down a bit after venting his anger. I have never heard of Pei Xian having such a hobby before, but in the past few months, it has been rumored that he has accepted a lot of people. I don't know how. Xiaoling lowered her head and tightened her hand holding the water glass slightly. Pei Xian felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. He accepted a lot of people? She originally thought that all he wanted was Ye Xinling, so although she was frightened, she would not be heartbroken and despairing. However, now that I heard the news, my heart felt as if someone had cut it out with a knife, suffocating me with pain and dripping with blood. In the void, a voice was mocking unbridledly. Who do you think you are? Think you are unique? Come on, you have never been the only one in his eyes. There was Wang Jingguan in the previous life, and there are many unknown characters in this life. You tried your best to escape from his cage. To him, you are just a character in many games. Of a game. Finger bones turned white, the glass in his hand shook uncontrollably, and ripples appeared on the water. Wei Shaiyin was still on the phone with Tan Ying. Since you know that this money is used by Pei Xian to buy lovers and not the emperor to buy trainees, can you still force Xiaoling to go without conscience? Tan Ying, this matter, I disagree. Tan Ying's tone was very indifferent. Wei, you have the final say on music matters. I have the final say on the training camp. As soon as he finished speaking, Wei Shaiyin slapped his hand on the coffee table without any warning, making an earth-shattering sound. Xiaoling was startled. The glass in her hand fell to the ground without holding it firmly, and the broken glass splashed all over the ground. Wei Shaiyin didn't notice anything and just stared at the mobile phone on the table. On the other end, Tan Ying was silent for a moment. "Wei, don't be angry." Wei Shaiyin's face looked terrible, and she pursed her lips and said nothing. Tan Ying sighed and said slowly, "I know Yexin Ling has potential. I did miss her before, but her performance in the past 6 months has completely met the debut standards, and she is even improving. Every assessment is better than the last one." "Better," he said over the phone. "Wei, you said she will become popular in the future. I believe it." Wei Shaiyin's expression softened a little, but she still didn't speak. Tan Ying continued, "But to what extent can she become famous? Judging from the current situation, she is only at the top level. Do you still expect her to become a queen and superstar? Those who are at the level of Queen of Heaven are indeed rare to find." Wei Shaiyin finally spoke. Tan Ying smiled, "Well, you know better than me how difficult it is. So, let's assume that Yexin Ling can become a first-line singer in the future, and this time the emperor replaced 2 future first-line singers. This transaction is made by Tianyi." Wei Shaiyin's voice became cold. "It can't be calculated like this." Tan Ying interrupted him, "I know what you are going to say. It is unfair to Yexin Ling. But now that Pei Ziyan has set his sights on her, she no longer has much value to Tianyi. You know, Pei Ziyan is famous for being domineering. Those who follow others will prosper and those who go against others will perish. Even if they can't get it, there are countless ways to make Yexin Ling's life difficult in the future. This little girl's future will be very bumpy, and instead of for her, let Tianyi fight against the emperor. I'm not saying that Tianyi can't handle it, but the price/performance ratio is too low and it's unnecessary. Wei, do you understand? It's better to take this opportunity to give up and replace it with 2 more suitable newcomers. This is what Tianyi senior management should consider." "Wei, think about it carefully." Tan Ying said the last sentence and cut off the phone. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 43. Chapter 43, What more can a man ask for when he has such a friend? Long silence. Wei Shaiyin's face was always cold, and she slowly drank the Mand coffee in her hand. When he slapped the table in anger, half a cup of coffee spilled out, spilling all over the plate and table. But as a germaphobe as he was, he didn't even notice. Xiaoling didn't speak either, her heart sinking little by little. Tan Ying's words just now, although cold and ruthless, were all about the company, making it impossible to argue with. Wei Shaiyin is also a senior member of the company and a dedicated person. She does not think that their friendship is good enough for him to harm the company's interests for her. What's more, as Tan Ying said, Wei Shaiyin can't make the decision regarding the training camp. While thinking wildly, Wei Shaiyin spoke. "Xiaoling," he looked at her, "are you unwilling to go to the emperor just because Pei Ziyan wants you?" She gave a muffled hum sound. "How determined are you? Even if I die, I will not become his plaything." She lowered her head and looked at the intricate and interlaced patterns on the coffee table. Wei Shaiyin fell silent again, drinking coffee one sip after another. Xiaoling took a deep breath. "Mr. Wei, I'm sorry, it was me who made things difficult for you. Regarding this matter, how much money do you still owe the company?" Wei Shaiyin interrupted her. She was startled for a moment. "Also, go look at the trainee contract and tell me how much the liquidated damages are." Wei Shaiyin put down the coffee cup in her hand and made a decision. "Give me the total amount and I will pay for it for you." Xiaoling couldn't believe it. Wei Shaiyin was trying to help her escape from Tianyi. His nose is a little sour. He is not a big boss like Pei Ziyan or Li Lei. Even if he has money, it is limited. What's more, trainees' liquidated damages have always been sky high. However, he was willing to spend so much for her. How could she not be moved? "Why do you want to help me?" she asked softly. "There are not many people in this world who can impress me, and you happen to be one of them," Wei Shayin said, but a trace of apology appeared on her usually arrogant and critical face. "But Tianying is right, I should do it for you." Tianyi considers that it is not worth letting Tianyi fight against the emperor for this matter. "Therefore, I can only help you get rid of Tianyi in my own name. But you have to think carefully, Xiaoling. Once you do this, your future will be very difficult. No company is willing to take in a trainee who broke his promise and was embarrassed by the emperor. Most likely, you will leave the entertainment industry forever." "Away, I don't care," she looked at him and said seriously. "Finally, I am willing to call him away." In this life, Xiaoling once said that she no longer needs any friends, but his help in such a timely manner made her unable to help but let go of her guard and blurt out. She raised her head. "Away, I don't care at all whether I can stay in the entertainment industry. However, I don't want to rely on other people's funding to escape in despair. Even if I want to leave, I will wait until the day when it is fair and square, not now." Wei Shayin looked at her carefully and then smiled. "Sooner or later, your arrogance will kill you." "You've already killed me once," she said lightly. He only thought she was joking and tapped the table with his long fingers. This was his unique habit when thinking. After a long time, he said, "Xiaoling, I've thought about it a lot, and this is the only way. If you want to get rid of Pei Zion, you can only use this method and risk leaving the entertainment industry." She was silent. Actually, there was another way, but she didn't know if it would be too shocking. "But right now, I don't care about that much. Tianying gave up on me because my value was not enough for Tianyi to take too much risk to protect it." Xiaoling thought about it and said to Wei Shayin, "But what if I have greater value? UN much higher than the value of those two emperor trainees? In that case, Tianyi will choose to protect you," Wei Shayin said without hesitation, but then frowned at her. "Those two trainees already have first-tier potential, you are more valuable than them, unless they are. I will prove to the company that I have the potential to be a diva. A certain advanced shooting range." Li Lei drew a large hardwood bow, filled the string, and shot the arrow, hitting the target. Several handsome young men and female companions around him cheered loudly. "Young Master Li is young Master Li. His archery skills are always on target, which is admirable." Li Lei smiled, casually took the towel handed by his female companion and wiped his face. When he heard his cell phone ringing, he took a few steps to pick it up. "Hello, Tianying," his voice was low and melodious. "What? You said Yexing Ling wants to prove to the company that she has the potential to be a queen." On the other end of the phone, Tianying apologized to Li Lei. "I'm sorry, boss, I originally planned to drive her to a dead end so that she would have to ask you for help, but I didn't expect that she would play this trick." In fact, as early as 10 when Ying went to Li Lei's apartment to pick someone up, Li Lei had told him to report anything about this girl at any time. As soon as Chu Chen came to ask for someone, Tan Ying reported to Li Lei. It was Li Lei who ordered him to follow the company's normal procedures and scare Yexing Ling so that she had no choice but to beg Li Lei. Unexpectedly, such a mistake would occur. "What should we do, boss?" Tan Ying hurriedly added, "or, should I judge her as mediocre and unreasonable? How can the potential of a queen be so easy to prove? When I block her back, she still has to beg you." Li Lei chuckled softly. "You are right, the potential of a diva is not so easy to prove." He tilted his head slightly while talking on the phone, and under the clear sunshine of the winter afternoon, a pair of deep eyes shone brightly. "I am very curious. Where did she get the confidence to come up with such a proof? Tan Ying, please just follow the normal process and don't make any mistakes. I'm looking forward to it." Tianyi office. Tan Ying hung up the phone, thought for a while, and pressed an internal line, prepare the venue and organize a public review meeting. The judging meeting will be held 3 days later in the small performance hall of Tianyi training camp. Tanying ordered that if Xiaoling can conquer the judging panel with her singing on the spot, then she will stay in Tianyi, otherwise, she will go to Emperor. The news spread, and the entire training camp was in an uproar. Wei Shaiyin was very worried and scolded Xiaoling for being crazy. How many years did it take for a queen to be born? How can she be confident? Xiaoling knew that he was worried about her, so she just smiled and let him watch. For others, this may be difficult, but for her it is very simple. She has once reached the height of the Queen of Heaven, stood at the top and overlooked all living beings, and deeply understands what kind of state it is, and how to climb it. Now, it is nothing more than retracing the path that has been conquered. Wei Shaiyin still finds it incredible. However, he said arrogantly, Haikao is yours to praise. If you can't do it, you will be the only one to be embarrassed. Even so, he thoughtfully pointed out many things in her voice that needed attention. Xiaoling was moved in her heart. What more could she ask for when she has such a friend? End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 44. Chapter 44 Queen Review Meeting. The day of the judging meeting. Many trainees who wanted to watch the show, who were curious and wanted to join in the fun, made an appointment in 2s and 3s to go to the scene. Tanying did not stop him, but cooperated and cancelled the class that morning. According to his words, Xinling, do you think it is so easy to be a queen? Hard work alone is not enough. You also need talent, musicality, stage style, field control ability, pressure resistance, aura, and charm. If you don't have one without the other, your weaknesses will be exposed in a live performance environment, and of course, your strengths will be magnified. She had no objection. Before going out, she looked at herself in the mirror. The girl in the mirror is wearing a white dance practice uniform, has clean and long hair, light amber eyes, and delicate features. There is nothing surprising about her appearance in the training camp filled with beauties. She is 17 years old, but her body frame is still slender. In the shallow light of the morning, she looks like a quiet white bird. She stretched out her finger and pointed at the floor-to-ceiling mirror. The girl in the mirror did the same thing as her. Xiaoling, she looked at the mirror and said to herself, the journey from now on will depend on you alone. There was a cold touch on my fingertips. She lowered her hands and turned around to go out. There were many people in the performance hall, gathering in 2s and 3s on the aisles and in the hall, waiting for the show to start. Xiaoling walked all the way in, glanced at the number of people, and found that about half of the trainees were there. There were whispers coming from all directions. She is Xinling? The one who refused to go to the emperor. Yeah, I don't know why I'm so nervous. I heard that the emperor is very optimistic about her, but she just doesn't know what to do. Haha, you know you are incompetent and you are afraid of embarrassing the emperor, right? Who knows, yet you are so brazen that you have the potential to be a diva. Is this because you are mentally ill? Do you think divas are just cabbages on the street? Ha ha ha. That's right, just like her, she is still a queen of heaven. If she can become a queen of heaven, I can also become a god. Then there was unbridled laughter. Xiaoling remained calm despite the ridicule, her expression was peaceful, and her slender figure was graceful and straight. She walked forward steadily step by step. On both sides of the corridor, all kinds of eyes were peering at her. Gradually, some people were impressed by her calmness. The girl in the center of the vortex was obviously just pretty in appearance, but her grades were improving in training. He is not outstanding in the camp, and he has endured so much criticism. Why is it that he has an aura that is like a queen coming to dominate the world? As she walked past, the jeers subsided unconsciously. Xiaoling continued to move forward and met a man in a suit and leather shoes, holding a crocodile leather briefcase. It was Chu Chen. Ling, Chu Chen spoke first, sarcastically, do you really think you can become a queen? Stop dreaming. Things have reached this point, and you still have to struggle. It's still too late to follow me now. If you really get on stage, it will only make a fool of yourself. Not only will it not change the outcome, but it will also make people laugh in vain. Why are you doing this? Xiaoling's expression turned cold. Get out of here. The people around him gasped. Does she know who she is talking to? That's Chu Chen, the emperor's prestigious chief agent. The former royal agent of the legendary Queen Xiaoling. The person who Pei Ziyan trusts and relies on the most. According to legend, even the emperor's big boss Pei Ziyan never said a harsh word to Chu Chen. Only Xiaoling, who was spoiled by Pei Ziyan and became lawless, arrogant, and willful, would scold Chu Chen occasionally when she was unhappy. Who does she think she is, Xiaoling? How dare you speak to Chu Chen like this? However, no one could have imagined that Ling, who could only be described as pretty in appearance, was actually the stunningly talented and legendary Queen Xiaoling herself. She had always been rude to Chu Chen, not to mention that she had experienced so much in her previous life. Something happened. Now that she saw Chu Chen's true face clearly, Chu Chen offended her even more. Seeing Chu Chen didn't move, she said again, get out of here. Chu Chen didn't expect that she would scold him like this. He was startled for a moment, his face was uncertain, and then he laughed angrily. Okay, very good. Ling, you have the backbone, you are just a young trainee. That's all. How dare you be so arrogant and ignorant? Don't cry and beg for mercy when you suffer later. His voice gradually turned gloomy. Xiaoling was too lazy to talk nonsense with him, so she bypassed him and walked to the judging hall. The judging hall was packed with seats. Seeing Xiaoling enter the room, everyone's eyes gathered like searchlights. Xiaoling adjusted her pace and breathed slowly. This was something she was used to doing before going on stage in her previous life. With her long breaths, she emptied her mind and didn't see, listen, think, or eliminate anything. All distracting thoughts, let the spirit reach its best state. She came to the stage step by step. Senior Ye, please come on stage, came the sweet voice of the announcer. Xiaoling walked onto the stage along the narrow stairs calmly and leisurely. The announcer retreated, and all the lights went out, plunging him into darkness. Suddenly, spotlights from all directions converged on her at the same time, and the intense light almost blinded people. She had not experienced this familiar feeling for a long time, the brightness and heat that seemed to be able to burn everything out. She was in the center of focus, surrounded by endless darkness. In a trance, she seemed to own the entire universe. Here, she is the universe. A voice came from not far away on the right. Ling, are you ready? She turned around and saw a hazy halo coming towards the other end. It was the judging panel. There were 5 people in total, including Tan Ying, Wei Shaiyan, and 3 senior executives of Tianyi, who were also recognized experts in music. The speaker was Tan Ying. Xiaoling nodded and picked up the microphone. You can start at any time. Tan Ying continued to confirm with her, are you still insisting on singing a cappella instead of using accompaniment? Yes, she said. The audience immediately exploded with applause and boos. Everyone knows that singing a cappella is much more difficult than accompaniment, especially when singing live. Even singers who have been famous for a long time do not dare to do such crazy things. However, the only thing that best reflects a singer's true skills is a cappella singing, which is why she insists on singing a cappella. Either she doesn't sing, or she sings so hard that everyone is speechless. He is crazy, Wei Shaiyan cursed in a low voice. She smiled at him. He raised his glass to her, with a hint of worry in his eyes, but more of an encouragement. Then, As you wish. Tan Ying's voice came, yes Ling, you can start. The light beam on the judging panel dimmed, and she was the only one left in the world. This time, unlike previous trainee tests, she could not concentrate and had to devote herself wholeheartedly. She calmed down and imagined herself floating in the boundless darkness, an illusory world, and eternal loneliness. The first line of the lyrics slowly flowed out of the mouth, under the starry sky, above the night sea. There was an instant commotion in the audience, spreading like a tide. It's the siren. It's Xiaoling's siren. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weiniang. Chapter 45. Chapter 45 Siren. Is she crazy? She chose such a difficult song and sang it a cappella. Exclamations came and went, all in extremely surprised tones, as if they had seen a ghost. Xiaoling, however, calmly and gracefully swayed, slowly spiraling the melody to the extreme, and then dissipated like a thread. Once she started singing, her heart would always be clear, without any distracting thoughts, weaving a unique world, not for outsiders. Things move. The second line of lyrics follows immediately, the silver-haired siren sings alone. The audience has quieted down. She stretched out her arms, drew a graceful half-arc on the ground with her toes, and danced to the song. The lyrics still flowed down one after another, and were combined into strange melodies according to unique rhythms, long and short, echoing in the dark space. This is a ballad. On the boundless night sea, a group of pirates encountered a silver-haired siren. They were dazzled by its beauty and surrounded it with 13 pirate ships in an attempt to capture it. But it charmed them with its singing, causing them to get lost in a world of illusion and unable to move. In the end, they were hunted down by it one by one. This is a game of hunter and prey. There is a splendid scene, which is the battle between the siren and the pirate king. The heroic pirate king used his strong willpower to fight against the siren's song. When he briefly woke up, he was shocked to realize that there was already a sea of blood around him. The silver-haired siren was holding a dagger studded with gems and was wiping the neck of the pirate not far away. Under the bright starlight, its face was so beautiful that the heaven and earth were eclipsed. There was a trace of blood on its lips, and behind it were the mutilated corpses of the pirates. The pirate king drew out his long sword and struggled to kill the sea monster. It was on the deck, dragging its long tail fin, and had no time to escape. Looking at the approaching predators, its singing intensified again and again, becoming more and more distant, more and more charming and alluring. The battle of life and death. Xiaoling's singing gradually became more and more passionate, mixed with soft and low-pitched temptation. The melody spanned a wide range, and it seemed to make her heart beat out of her chest. I remember that year, she had lost her voice several times while practicing this cadenza. Pei Ziyan sadly said why she had to work so hard. However, when he heard her sing this melody in the dance studio, he couldn't express it for a long time. Xiaoling, he said after a long time, in the world of music, you are the master. She closed her eyes and stood above the tide. Even her breath seemed to be filled with the endless smell of blood. The pirate king's sword is getting closer and closer. The desperate siren, if it cannot suppress its opponent with its song, only death awaits it. Fighting for survival and fighting for freedom, it never flinched from beginning to end. This was a war with no retreat. Even if the singing voice is hoarse and the blood is running out. Even if the sea water dries up and the stars fall. The silver-haired siren, no one can own it, lost in delusion, and will eventually die. The last note fell and she opened her eyes. There was silence in the audience, and there was no sound for a long time. For a long time, I didn't know who took the lead in applauding. The applause was scattered at first, but soon it became louder and louder, almost knocking over the roof. Yes, Ling, well done. It's really at the level of a queen, my God, it's incredible. How is it possible? Besides Xiaoling, who else can sing siren to this point? Let me die. In the small performance hall, the soft light slowly turned on. She glanced at the audience. The trainees who had previously planned to watch her joke were all excited at this moment. They all made microphones with their hands and shouted something to the stage. Some of them were even more excited and planned to rush to the stage to find her. He asked for an autograph, but was stopped by the coach who was responsible for maintaining order. What a group of simple children. Initially, he didn't even bother to get anything, but after seeing clearly the difference in strength, he made a 180-degree reversal without any grudges, and his attitude suddenly became so fanatical. It's just that for her, she has seen too many scenes no matter how fanatical they are. Xiaoling shifted her gaze and looked at the judge's seat. Wei Shaiying gave her a thumbs up and smiled. Several judges exchanged opinions in low voices. After a while, they nodded to each other and fell into silence. Tan Ying held the microphone and concluded her speech. Very good singing voice, yes Ling. She expected this result. She bowed politely to him and thanked him, waiting for the next step. The singing, dancing and stage style are all very good, and every detail is perfect. Tan Ying smiled and then asked, "Can you tell me how long you have been practicing this song?" She said calmly, "I like this song very much. I have been practicing it since the day I knew it." She likes every song she sings and treats music without any perfunctory attitude. Therefore, now when Tan Ying asked, he was able to give such an answer without any guilt. Tan Ying agrees, it really doesn't seem like a skill that can be achieved overnight. Changing the topic, he asked again, "But although you performed well in several exams in the training camp, you have never been so amazing. Can you tell me why?" She lowered her eyes. Rabbits will bite when they are anxious, right? If it weren't for him, according to Xiaoling's plan, it would take about another year or so to unobtrusively return to a level similar to the previous life, which would appear more reasonable. But now, he wanted to sell her to the emperor, and she had no choice but to risk being regarded as a monster and show her true abilities in advance. Fortunately, in the past 2 days, I have been trying to find a reasonable reason. Usually in the training camp, I pay more attention to basic skills training and want to lay a solid foundation, she said, so, every time during the monthly exam, what you see is Yexin Ling who has solid skills and standardized movements. Tan Ying and others nodded and motioned for her to continue. But this time it's different. This review is related to my destiny. I can't just rely on basic skills to pass. I have to use all my talents, aura, and strength. My potential is brought out. Fortunately, I did it. In other words, in normal times, you wouldn't be where you are today. Tan Ying captured something keenly. Xiaoling was wary, thought for a moment, and replied, "Although my previous performance in the training camp was not as good as today. But today's performance has allowed me to find my own state, and I will maintain it in the future." Thought for a while, then added, "If Mr. Tan doesn't believe it, you can test it again in the future." Tan Ying smiled, "Don't be so cautious, I believe you. In fact, there are many artists who cannot find such a state in their entire lives. Even if you have only performed once so far, it is still worth the risk." Tan Ying felt a little regretful. She had overcome the difficulties with her strength and would not ask Li Lei for help. It seems that their big boss has to find another way to pick this delicate but prickly flower. However, he was more excited because he had the potential of a queen. How many years did it take to get such a queen? It can be predicted that when she debuts, Tianyi's momentum will reach a higher level. He announced, "Yexin Ling, you can stay in Tianyi and there is no need to transfer to Emperor." Xiaoling breathed a long sigh of relief, and the big stone in her heart finally fell to the ground. However, unexpectedly, a cold voice came from the audience, "Does this mean that she has the potential to be a queen? Mr. Tan, your Tianyi judgment is too hasty." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Sci-fi. Chapter 46. Chapter 46 Wei Shaiyin's Counterattack. Everyone goes out one by one. Below the stage, in the first row of guest seats, Chu Chen sat with his hands clasped together. Yes, Yingling's singing of Siren is really good, barely reaching Xiaoling's standards back then. He said slowly, but, at best, it's just parroting. The similarity with Xiaoling is too high. Can such a person be recognized? As soon as these words came out, everyone fell silent. Xiaoling was so angry that she almost trembled. She thought about how she treated him well back then, especially when she said all the good things about him in front of Pei Ziyan. But now that he has been reincarnated, why does he always linger and have trouble with her again and again? He opened his mouth and was about to say something, but Wei Shaiyin had already taken the lead. Chu Chen, if you don't understand music, let Feng Kun do it. He always spoke mercilessly, and he has become more and more sharp these days. Yingling's singing of this song is very different from Xiaoling's style, can't you even see it? Chu Chen sneered, so she just mostly imitated Xiaoling. In terms of the handling of high notes, they are really different. There are many tunes that she can't sing at all. There was a buzz of discussion in the audience. Chu Chen was right. In her previous life, her vocal range was extremely wide and she could sing anything with ease. However, her voice in this life was not as good as that time. There were several places in this song that she really found difficult to sing. So, Yinling did a perfect tone change. Wei Shaiyin said for Tad, she used her own way to seamlessly solve all the parts that couldn't be sung, making the song sound natural. In terms of overall quality, there is not a single bit of damage. This is a more precious talent than imitating the original song, don't you understand? These words made many people in the audience nod. Yes, if we hadn't known that the original singer of this song was Xiaoling, we would have thought it was tailor-made for Yinling. Wei Shaiyin continued, what's more, Yingling's overall style in handling this song is different from Xiaoling. Xiaoling is very flamboyant, like a flame in the deep sea, gorgeous, coquettish, and full of danger. The temptation. He said, but Yinling is not, she is more cold. At this point, he glanced at her. Her singing is like a mist, which hides the loneliness and desolation that are floating in the sea. For such a young girl who can sing to such a level, her future prospects are limitless. Wei Shaiyin finished speaking. Chu Chen looked at him solemnly, his lips pursed tightly. Xiaoling knew that he had no way to refute Wei Shaiyin. In terms of musical insight, he was far behind Wei Shaiyin. Even if he continued to argue, he would only be humiliating himself. He stood up and said, this trainee will be stored in Tianyi for the time being. After speaking, he took a deep look at her. This time, she saw his expression clearly. There seemed to be a trace of nostalgia, disdain, cruelty, and sigh. It was difficult to distinguish between sadness and happiness, and it was complicated and unpredictable. He turned and left without saying any harsh words. The emperor's men never speak, only do. Xiaoling was horrified by his last look, and her heart seemed to be choked by a cold hand, suffocating her breath. Until Tan Ying announced the end of the show, Wei Shaiyin came over and patted her on the shoulder. Xiaoling. She came to her senses. He handed her what he had in his hand, a glass of warm water and a lozenge. Don't force yourself so much in the future, he said, your voice is a lifelong thing. She was startled, then smiled gratefully at him and whispered, yes, I know. He put his index finger on his lips, made a silencing gesture, and then took her to the lounge. Xiaoling sat for a while and drank some water, feeling a little better. Only then did he feel free to talk to her. Did you have difficulty singing the last part? She knew that he had noticed that the song Siren was indeed difficult. Even if she had processed it in some places, it would still be very laborious to sing it in one breath. In the last cadenza, at the climax, she sang a little hastily. Although it was only a few seconds of unobtrusive singing, Wei Shayin heard it keenly. She sighed, a little disappointed. In my previous life, I was well-fed, and had a dedicated nutritionist to take care of my body and protect my throat in every possible way. In this life, my voice is naturally ordinary and has not been carefully cultivated. How can it compare with the peak of my voice? The once magnificent Xiaoling has finally become a legend that cannot be replicated. Wei Shayin saw her melancholy. No one would be stupid enough to compete with Xiaoling in terms of vocal range. That is asking for death. Xiaoling, you have done a good job. Your skills are not inferior to hers in handling emotions. Even more detailed and superior, as long as you keep on working on your own style, one day you will be able to stand at the top. She knew what he meant, that would be Yezingling's peak, completely different from Xiaoling. While feeling sad, she couldn't help but feel a bit of expectation in her heart. She whispered to herself, yes, what will it be like when Yezinling reaches her peak? Slowly drinking the water in the glass, she raised her head and said, "Away, thank you. Thank me for nothing. Thank you for not abusing your throat a few times." Wei Shayin saw that she was fine, and her mouth returned to meanness. "I simply can't believe you can be so stupid, imitating Xia Yu's weak mind to squeeze the limit. Are you? Are you trying to trick Tan Ying? Are you planning to let him reject the emperor first and then cry bitterly while holding a broken Yezinling?" She whispered guiltily, "But I did change the tone. Even if you change the key, your current situation cannot afford such high-intensity live singing. Then you just told Chu Chen that I sang perfectly. I lied to him. Do you believe this? Is your IQ the same as his?" She was so scolded by him that she didn't dare to talk back, so she swallowed her anger and waited for him to enjoy himself, then walked away. After he left, Xiaoling went to eat dejectedly, then returned to the dormitory, took a shower and went to bed exhausted. Wei Shayin is right. With her current voice and physical condition, singing Siren is indeed too heavy a burden. She didn't feel it when she was on the stage. Now that she relaxes, she only feels that she has no energy, mental and physical strength. Double overdraft. I slept very deeply this time, and it was rare that I didn't have any nightmares. I don't know how long it took before I was shaken awake by someone. "Xin Ling, your phone number." It's her roommate, Lan Lan. Lan Lan handed over a mobile phone inlaid with exquisite rhinestones. "It's been ringing for a long time and we've all been woken up. Please answer it quickly." Xiaoling was in a daze and didn't want to move, and her words were unclear. "Hang up for me." Lan Lan looked at her as if she had seen a ghost. "Hang up? That's the big boss's phone number. Xin Ling, when did you meet our big boss?" Xiaoling suddenly woke up. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 47. Chapter 47. Silent Night. Frost Flower. Taken the phone and looked at it, the caller ID turned out to be Lilei. At the beginning, when he sent the housekeeper to give her a mobile phone, he had pre-stored his number. Xiaoling tried to delete it, but could not. Looking at the endless blinking incoming call notifications, Xiaoling was helpless, scratching her hair, reluctantly getting out of the warm bed, throwing on a coat, getting up and going to the balcony of the dormitory to answer the phone. On the balcony, the night wind is cold and cool. The sky was dark, and there was a dark red star hanging alone in the sky, which looked a little desolate. Everything was quiet everywhere. The endless dormitory buildings were dark and dim, and the lights were dimmed. She glanced at the big fluorescent clock opposite the dormitory building. It read 1:14 in the morning. "Very good, I don't know what's wrong with Mr. Boss. She suppressed her tiredness and said hey. Li Lei's voice came from the other end of the phone, saying something unclearly, but she didn't hear it clearly. Xiaoling thought the signal was not good, frowned, changed her posture, and said hey again. This time, I finally heard him calling her name, Yexin Ling. The voice was low and hoarse, and even her articulation was blurred. It was completely different from usual, a little less lazy and cynical, and a little more lonely and fragile. She shuddered at her thoughts. Could it be that you had a drink? This thought flashed through Xiaoling's mind. Over there, Big Boss Li stopped for a while and asked with some uncertainty, Yexin Ling, are you still there? She said, yes. Li Lei stopped talking. There was a long silence. Only the sound of breathing came quietly through the signal. The wind picked up in the night, bringing a slight chill to the body. The black iron railing at hand was lightly covered with frost. If you accidentally touched it, it was bitingly cold. When she came out, she was only wearing a set of pajamas. At this moment, she felt that her whole body was trembling. However, between returning to bed to catch up on her sleep or continuing to stand here stupidly while he consumed her, she inexplicably chose the latter. Finding a corner with leeward wind, she curled up and said, Boss, what do you want to see me for? He still didn't speak, and was unusually quiet. However, it was abnormal for him to call her in the middle of the night. If he hadn't pronounced her name accurately, she would have suspected that he just dialed the wrong number. After waiting patiently for a while, he finally said, I watched your performance today. She was slightly startled. She didn't see him in the small performance hall during the day, so he was. Tan Ying sent me the video, he said. Mr. Tan is such a good employee. Xiaoling gritted her teeth and tried not to yawn, scolding Tan Ying 1,800 times in her heart. It's all because of his meddling and posting random videos, otherwise, Boss Li would be able to think of her in the middle of the night. He is indeed a good employee. Li Lei's voice was magnetic and hoarse. Tan Ying said, maybe in the future, we will fight against the emperor for you. His pronunciation was still a bit unclear, and it took some effort for her to hear it clearly. This is a big event. He asked me to evaluate it to see if you are worth it. In the Nanchinj apartment, Li Lei's slender and well-proportioned body was leaning on the leather sofa. On the LCD TV screen opposite the sofa, the song Siren she sang a cappella at the review meeting was playing in a loop. He stared at her with his wine glass in his hand, drunkenly, but did not tell her that he was not evaluating, he just simply wanted to see her. On the balcony of the training camp dormitory, Xiaoling thought she understood the meaning of Tan Yingchuan's video. She couldn't help but become nervous and asked cautiously, then do you think I'm worth it? Li Lei laughed softly. Boss, she felt anxious and anxious. Yexin Ling, he did not answer her question directly, he only said, do you really not consider becoming my person? I can give you everything you want. Your future stardom will be bright, and any diva or superstar will be at your fingertips. She frowned, no. You make an offer. No price can make me give in, she said coldly. If you don't ask for a price, go to the emperor. He groped with some difficulty on the leather sofa, raised his hand, filled himself another glass of wine, and drank it all. He was so drunk that his hands were shaking. Most of the amber liquid spilled on his body and flowed down his neck to his chest. The area on his chest near his heart was covered with thick gauze and dark blood came out. No one can resist the temptation of profit. For money, his brother, who has been through life and death for many years, betrayed him today. There was severe pain near the heart, and Li Lei said solemnly, don't think that I dare not do anything to you. Xiaoling has no idea what Big Boss Li is going through, but obviously, it doesn't make sense. After being coerced and lured by him many times, she became angry and couldn't help but sneer, Li Lei, you are overestimating yourself. Is it great to be rich and powerful? I tell you, I won't accompany you anymore. I will tell you clearly that I will never become yours even if I die, let alone the emperor. You can go to court and sue me for breach of contract, whatever. She was so angry that she even uttered vulgar words. After she finished cursing, she hung up the phone decisively. The night wind picked up again, and frost spread on the black iron railings. She looked at the complicated and cold patterns, and her heart felt astringent. I thought that after such a long time and after she rejected him several times, Lillet had given up on her. Unexpectedly, he never gave up on her, thinking about her again and again. She underestimated his patience. Now, for his own sake, he threatened her with the murderous move of transferring to the emperor. However, what is the essential difference between someone who goes to the emperor and becomes Paysan, and someone who stays in Tianyi and becomes him? They are just playthings. She doesn't want to be anyone's plaything, even if she breaks her contract with Tianyi. She has no intention of complying with the transfer order, and she can't afford the high liquidated damages. It doesn't matter. The worst she can do is go to jail. Even if she becomes a prisoner, she will not sell her body. She took a deep breath and put her pale fingers on the black iron railing. The chill seemed to spread to the bottom of her heart. Back in bed, she tossed and turned, thinking about what to do in the future, how to protect herself from violence during the period before she fell out with Tianyi and was sent to prison. In front of those in power, she is so small and vulnerable. Unexpectedly, in the quiet night, she thought of a man who was like a Paysan. He once arranged her clothes and dried her wet hair so gently. They set off fireworks together on Valentine's Day, and he pulled her frozen hand into his arms. They cut the cake together on her birthday, and he gently scraped the cream off the tip of her nose. My heart is sore and painful, and I feel empty and uncomfortable. Xiaoling curled up tightly in the quilt. For a moment, she thought to herself that she might as well follow Chu Chen back to the embrace that still made her nostalgic. From now on, she would obediently listen to his words and no longer have to worry about being homeless, tell him clearly who she is and cry in his arms. But there is a voice in my heart that is always alert, Xiaoling, don't forget those terrible past events. All tenderness is false. He turns his hands into clouds and rain, and dominates your whole world. Heaven or hell, only in a moment. You can't even tell whether he has ever loved you or not. Hooking up her body even tighter, Xiaoling bit her teeth between her fingers to suppress the sob. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 48. Chapter 48. You can make your debut. Xiaoling looked very bad when she woke up the next morning. My head is dizzy and there is some pain. It may be that I caught a cold last night. She took out 2 pills from the drawer, took them, and went to the dance studio with the group to start the day's dance training. However, after just a few rounds, I felt exhausted, so I had to sit down in the rest area, drink water quietly, and watch everyone train. People came over one after another to strike up a conversation. Yesterday's incident has spread throughout the training camp. It is said that the video was even posted on the internal forum. They all know how wonderful she sang Siren. Many people gathered around her and chatted, expressing their kindness, as if the unknown Yexing Ling was excluded and isolated had never happened before. Some people also asked her for advice on singing skills, and she took the trouble to answer them one by one. During lunch break, Tan Ying called her to the office. At the first sight of her, he frowned. Yexing Ling, he put down the coffee cup and documents in his hands. Did you kill people, set fire, or rob homes last night? Why do you look so bad? Don't tell me because you were so excited after passing the review meeting that you stayed up all night to celebrate. It's okay if he doesn't mention it, but when he mentions it, Xiaoling becomes furious. Mr. Tan, she said, If it weren't for your gift, why would Big Boss Lee call me at 1 o'clock in the morning and let me catch a cold and still have insomnia for the rest of the night? What, boss called you so late yesterday? Tan Ying was surprised. Xiaoling finally realized that she had been so dizzy just now that she was talking without thinking, which could easily lead to misunderstanding. She quickly explained, he seems to be drunk. He saw the video you sent him and made a call. What did he say? Tan Ying seemed to be concerned. Xiaoling frowned, some drunken talk. Tan Ying did not pursue the question and fell into a brief thought. After a while, he said to her, yesterday, a brother who had followed boss for many years betrayed him. He was seriously injured and was in a bad mood. This is the first time in so many years that such a serious betrayal has occurred. She was startled. Are you trying to explain to her? But she didn't believe how serious Li Lei's injury was. If it was really serious, how could he call her in the middle of the night to tease her and force her to become his? Moreover, she didn't need Tan Ying to explain for him. She was not his someone, not even his bed partner. She was too far away and was neither qualified to comfort him nor make any comments about it. So she said, oh. Tan Ying shook her head, yes Yingling, you are so cold. She said, when you decided to sell me, you were not only cold, but also cold. Tan Ying looked at her deeply and said nothing more. Xiaoling was left aside, watching him drink coffee and handle official duties. Large swaths of sunshine crawled through the window frames and shone on his solid wood desk. There were piles of official documents on his desk, and it seemed that he would never be able to finish them. She finally couldn't sit still. Mr. Tan, why did you call me here? He let her stand for another 10 minutes before he spoke slowly. I asked you to come here today to inform you that the company has decided to let you debut. This news came suddenly, which surprised Xiaoling. The phone call last night still lingered in her ears. Didn't Li Lei threaten her, saying that she would either sleep in his bed or leave? She slightly frowned her beautiful eyebrows and asked, does boss know about this? Tan Ying said, this is the order that boss sent a special assistant to convey this morning. Otherwise, do you think you could approve it so quickly? Tianyi's debut process is very rigorous. It must first be reviewed by the examiner's style and strength, and then the family background and growth history are examined. Only after confirming that there are no problems will a formal decision be made. If it were not for the privilege, it would never be possible to stand out on the first day and confirm the debut the next day. However, Xiaoling was even more puzzled. Why did Big Boss Li's ideas change so quickly that he was kind enough to let her debut now? Could it be that he was really seriously injured and even his brain was damaged? She asked cautiously, does he have any additional conditions? No. Tan Ying quickly pushed a document over and said, sign. Xiaoling glanced at it. It was a formal debut agreement, which stipulated the rights and obligations of artists. The terms seemed very fair and reasonable. She had signed something like this in The Emperor in her previous life, and without much hesitation, she directly wrote her name. From now on, you will be an official artist of Tianyi. Tan Ying looked at her and added, it's all thanks to boss that everything goes so smoothly. Remember to thank him, his boss has never been so sincere in pursuit. Girl, who didn't have everything at your fingertips before. This time I happened to encounter a rose with thorns. Tan Ying decided to help him. Xiaoling frowned again. She finally understood why Tan Ying had just explained to her the reason for Li Lei's drunkenness and called her cold. Damn it, he thought she had a close relationship with Big Boss Li. But why did Li Lei let her debut so easily? She was puzzled, but Tan Ying had already continued, as for your agent, the company has already decided on it, and it is Maina. She will come over later, and you two can meet and communicate. Maina, this name sounds familiar. But she couldn't remember where she had heard it. Tan Ying's voice sounded, Sister Mai Na is one of Tianyi's best managers, but her temper is a bit domineering, and even Wei Shayin doesn't dare to offend her. You, please wish yourself well, he looked at her with a hint of sympathy. Xiaoling finally remembered where she had heard Mayna's name. Back in Li Lei's villa, Wei Shayin once mentioned with a sad face the woman who forced him to perform Xiaoling's funeral song. Not long after, the office door was pushed open, and a woman walked in furiously. Her posture is elegant and arrogant, and her movements are full of momentum, like a queen who dominates the world. She wore a professional suit with perfect lines, burgundy short ear-length hair, platinum earrings, and a gauze silk scarf around her neck. Other than that, she had no extra decoration. She stepped on her stiletto heels and came to Xiaoling, condescendingly. "Is this the little girl?" The voice was cold and crisp, like a glass of bright ice wine. Xiaoling is very dissatisfied. What does a little girl mean? She really wanted to tell Sister Mayna that she was 28 years old when she died last year, but now she is 29 and is no longer a little girl. Unfortunately, I can only think about this in my heart. Tanying had a smile on her always formulaic face and stood up diligently. "Sister Mayna, sit down." Sister Mayna did not sit down, or even glance at him. She only narrowed her eyes and looked at Xiaoling carefully. Many years later, Xiaoling chatted with Sister Mayna and talked about the scene when they first met. Sister Mayna held a cup of tea in her hand and said while recalling, "You were thin, small, and sickly at that time. If you hadn't seen the video before coming here, I wouldn't have believed that this person could sing hi. Demon person." At the moment, Xiaoling doesn't know what Sister Mayna is thinking. Sister Mayna looked at her with a critical eye, and after a long time, she said, "Yes, Yingling, you think it's great to be able to make a debut, right? You don't know how to take care of your body at a young age. Look at what you look like now. Do you still want to be a grown-up, device?" End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 49. Chapter 49. Don't imitate Xiaoling. Xiaoling was silenced by the training. Sister Mayna was right. Being an artist is a physical job, and you need to pay attention to your maintenance, especially not to get sick. However, this cold was really an accident. If you want to blame it, it's Big Boss who got so drunk that he called her in the middle of the night. If it weren't for him, how could she have ended up like this? Upon seeing this, Tanying came out to smooth things over, and finally got Sister Myna to sit aside. She still looked like a queen while sitting on the sofa, explaining things one by one, which are all things that a newly debuted artist should pay attention to, such as not talking to the media casually, not falling in love casually, obeying the company's arrangements, and always paying attention own image and so on. In fact, Xiaoling knew how to deal with this without her having to explain it, and she had already become accustomed to it. What Xiaoling cares about are other trivial things. For new artists, the cost of clothing will be a big expense, Sister Mayna told her. None of the clothes you are wearing can be used, they must be repurchased and must be tasteful. As he said that, he glanced at Xiaoling with disgust. Xiaoling smiled bitterly in her heart. Today, she was wearing a sweater dress that she bought on sale. It had no brand and no pattern. It was covered with an old coat. It was left behind by the owner of the body. It had been washed for many years. Her hair turned a little white, there was nothing she could do, her father in this life was an ordinary working man, and he also had a stepmother, so she was helpless. Sister Mayna scolded her mercilessly, "Are your dressing classes and brand classes all in vain? They are all unqualified from beginning to end. Change them immediately for me today." "I have no money," she replied simply. "Sister Mayna, I've seen people without money, but it's rare to see someone as confident as she is without money. Sister Mayna sneered, I don't expect you, a young newcomer, to be able to afford anything good. The company will temporarily lend you these installation costs, and you will pay them back slowly after you receive the notice. Little girl, you have to work harder and don't be unable to pay it back when the time comes. How is that possible? Xiaoling frowned slightly and snorted. However, speaking of it, she had never encountered such a problem in her previous life. At that time, she was with Pei Xian, and she was very particular about her daily clothes. They were all high-end ready-made clothes, handmade by famous artists. Even when she debuted, she didn't need to prepare anything. She only bought a few sets of high-end dresses for important occasions, which was already more impeccable than many actresses' elaborate outfits. All expenses will be paid from Pei Xian's personal account. As long as she likes it, there's nothing she can't get. She used to take it for granted. Because, he is her father, mentor, and lover, they are so close that they cannot distinguish each other. But now that I think about it, I just feel desolate. A twinge of pain arose in her heart, and Xiaoling forced herself not to think about it. Over there, Sister Mayna said, if you are ambitious. Then, now you can choose 2 brands and let the company allocate funds to purchase them. What I want to remind you is that even high-end brands must be based on whether they match your temperament. Don't make yourself a village girl. Xiaoling nodded understandingly. Affordability does not mean taste. Public figures like artists will be criticized for every outfit they wear. If you wear it carelessly, even if you are covered in gold and jade, it cannot hide the vulgar nature, and the price will be too low. But Sister Mayna is worried in vain. When it comes to dressing up, there are really not many people who can match Xiaoling. Back then, the world's best fashion media often used her dress as a model. Not to mention ordinary people, even many celebrities followed suit, and her influence was unparalleled. Her taste was cultivated by being around Pei Xian. The Pei family has been a wealthy family for generations, and Pei Xian has a good taste. He likes to buy clothes for her. The ones he chooses are low-key and comfortable styles, elegant design styles, and exquisite textures. She has worn them for half her life, and they are always inappropriate. It was not until she was reborn as Yexing Ling that she suddenly changed into seasonal discount products. My thoughts were drifting away, and Sister Mayna urged me impatiently. Xiaoling was absent-minded and casually named the 2 brands she usually wore. Sister Mayna laughed angrily, who do you think you are, the queen? Xiaoling. The first thing you say is the top luxury goods, high-end ready-made clothes that you may not be able to buy with money. Do you know how much it exceeds the budget? A newcomer who hasn't made a single announcement yet dares to mention it. I can't do it again. Xiaoling. Is it rare? Why doesn't she think that in her previous life, she just had a random piece of clothing that she forgot about on the set and didn't even bother to go back to get it? However, looking at Sister Mayna's face, well, it's very strange. She thought for a while and asked Sister Mayna, what's the budget? As soon as she said the words, she thought about it again. Forget it, even if she asked her, she had no idea. Apart from the brands she wore in her previous life, she actually knew very few brands. Pitiful. Sister Mayna, just specify 2 brands for me, she said self-deprecatingly. Sister Mayna glared at her fiercely, it saves you trouble. However, as luck would have it, she still stood up and looked up and down critically. After a moment, she came to the conclusion, your temperament is light and clean, but also a little cold and mysterious. The clothes at Lux are quite suitable for you, and the budget is sufficient, she said, taking out a business card from her exquisite handbag. He scribbled an address on his back and handed it to Xiaoling, take it and find him. Tell him that I introduced him. Xiaoling took it and thanked her. Sister Mayna narrowed her eyes and looked at her, the 2 brands you signed up for before, you are young and have good taste. However, are you imitating Xiaoling? You sang her siren, and you also want to wear the brand she usually wears. Xiaoling felt a chill in her heart, and quickly explained, I didn't deliberately imitate her, but I am a fan of hers, and I will be more or less influenced by idols. But she was silently complaining in her heart, what is going on? She has become a copycat of herself, and she still has to find a way to tell others that she is not plagiarizing. Sister Maina looked at her for a long time, then suddenly smiled, I am also a fan of hers. Huh, Xiaoling was surprised. Sister Maina did not continue on this topic, and her tone turned harsh, yes Yingling, it is one thing for you to be influenced by her, but it is another thing to imitate her deliberately. You have to remember, no matter how perfect Xiaoling is, she is not you, you have to have your own independent style. Xiaoling was silent for a moment and then said, I know. Just like Sister Maina, she is her manager first, and Xiaoling's fan second. And she, first of all, is Yexingling in this life. As for the memory of the Queen Xiaoling who lived in another world, she has gradually drifted away and can only be remembered. After meeting with Sister Maina, she took the address and went straight to buy clothes. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 50. Chapter 50. Can you afford it? It was a small ready-to-wear store. The store was very quiet. On the streamlined and simple clothes racks, pieces of exquisite clothing were displayed at random. They were all ingenious designs, elegant styles, and unique. Xiaoling looked at them one by one, but she couldn't say she liked them very much. She was spoiled by Peixian in her previous life, and the clothes she wore were all 100% natural fabrics, with no trace of man-made fibers to be found. In this store right now, the clothes are as chic as they come, but the materials they use are a bit lacking. Natural fabrics are mixed with man-made fibers, which may be comfortable enough for many people, but for Xiaoling, who is used to wearing better materials, I can only make do with it. But she knew that now was not the time to pay attention to these things. In any case, these clothes were already much better than the seasonal discounts she was wearing. She looked at them one by one, selected a light white knitted sweater with fine tassels, and reached out to pick it up. Unexpectedly, another hand stretched out from the side and snatched the shirt away at lightning speed. Xiaoling turned around and saw a very beautiful girl, carefully put on makeup, with domineering eyes and brows. Seeing Xiaoling looking over, the girl glared at her arrogantly, what are you looking at? I want this dress. After saying that, she waved her hand and threw it to the assistant behind her, take it to the checkout and wrap it up. The assistant was obedient, took the shirt and was about to leave. Wait a minute, Xiaoling's cold voice. What, do you have any objections? The girl raised her delicate chin high, crossed her arms and asked Xiaoling disdainfully. I took a fancy to this dress first. Xiaoling felt that her temper had become much calmer in her life. However, she still couldn't bear to be bullied to the point of being bullied. The girl became even more disdainful. She deliberately looked up and down at her shabby seasonal discounted clothes and laughed, who are you? You went to the wrong store? Do you know how expensive the clothes in this store are? Can you afford it? Popper, don't be embarrassed, really. Xiaoli, why did you let everyone in? She said the last sentence in a long tone, but she said it in the direction of the counter. In front of the cashier counter, a young female teller raised her head when she heard the sound. Her eyes fell on Xiaoling, and she could see at a glance that everything Xiaoling wore was cheap. I was afraid that all the outfits on her body would not be able to afford even one silk scarf in the store. Although there was no expression on her face, a touch of contempt arose in her heart. What was such a pauper doing in the store? Doesn't it lower the quality of the store? She was indeed careless just now. She was busy paying the bill and didn't notice that such a person had sneaked in. She had to get rid of him as soon as possible. Thinking like this, Xylee walked over with a smile. Sister Bayer, don't be angry. It's because I didn't treat you well. I'll give you an extra brooch later as an apology. Grab Xiaoling. The girl in the dress, named Li Beer, is a little star and a senior member of the store. She often comes to the store to spend money and has given Xylee a lot of sales. After Xylee finished trying to please Li Beer, she turned to Xiaoling, still smiling, with a hint of subtle reserve unknowingly in her smile. Miss, do you need to buy anything? What's your budget? I can introduce you to suitable clothes. Budget. Xiaoling didn't know what the budget was, so Sister Maina just told her to pick 4 or 5 sets from head to toe. After choosing, she would sign the contract directly, and then sign with Tianyi. It would not exceed the budget. Xiaoling was never sensitive to numbers, so she forgot to ask about the specific amount. So, she shook her head. I don't have the budget. I have to buy 4 or 5 sets of daily wear. Ha, 4 or 5 sets, Li Beer laughed out loud as if she had heard some big joke. Do you know how much the sweater costs? Let me tell you, it costs 4 to 5,000. The coat you are wearing is only how much? 40 or 50. Haha, the assistant behind her couldn't help but laugh. Even Xylee's smile widened slightly, feeling that this shabby girl was really ridiculous. She looked at Xiaoling with contempt and pity. Miss, a set of clothes here costs tens of thousands of yuan. The implication is that if you don't have money, get out of here. Xiaoling frowned, and the anger in her heart was rising. Isn't this looking down on others? I want that knitted sweater. I took a fancy to it first, she said coldly. It's only 4 or 5,000. If she hadn't been reduced to this in her life, she wouldn't have worn this kind of clothes before. Xylee's face turned cold. Miss, please don't be so troublesome. Great, is she being so troublesome? Xiaoling laughed angrily and said to Xylee, your ability to confuse right and wrong and that woman's shamelessness in robbing things are both amazing. You, Xylee and Li Beer both changed their faces with anger. Kick her out, Li Beer stamped her foot, otherwise I will never come to your store again. Xiao Li was shocked. This Li Beer was a big customer. If she didn't come, she would suffer a big loss in sales. Then the bonus would be. Miss, please leave, Xylee said to Xiaoling. Are you chasing away guests? Xiaoling narrowed her eyes slightly and asked, even if I want to buy clothes here, are you chasing away guests? Stop pretending to be fat. In order to calm down Li Beer's anger, Xylee took off her hypocritical smile mask at the beginning and directly mocked, how can a village girl like you deserve to buy from our store? Things. I think you are buying something fake, but you are actually here to steal it. Go away quickly, you are such a thief, you are really disgusting. Miss Li also thinks I am a thief, Xiaoling asked coldly. Isn't it? Seeing Xiaoling being ridiculed, Li Beer's face showed a happy smile. If you weren't a thief, what would you be doing here? If you don't leave, we will call the security guard and you will be held hostage. Throw it out of the store. Tisk tisk, how ugly it is. Very good. Unexpectedly, Xiaoling smiled slightly, turned around and left. Xiao Li and Li Beer didn't expect it to be so easy, and they were both a little stunned for a moment. Xiaoling put one hand in her pocket and walked towards the store door in a relaxed and calm manner, but before she had taken a few steps, she was stopped by someone. This lady, please stay, a gentle baritone voice. Xiaoling didn't want to talk to him at first, but she was a voice control. This person's voice was so pleasant that she stopped in her tracks without realizing it. She turned around and saw a mixed-race man. He was very tall, about 1.9 meters tall, with a pair of deep and charming eyes. When he smiled, he had shallow dimples on his cheeks. Xiaoling tilted her head and asked with her eyes. The man came over and said, sorry, the teller in my store was ignorant and offended you. I apologize to you on her behalf. Who are you? Lucas. It turned out that he was Lucas, the person Sister Maina asked her to find. Just now, she was casually browsing in the store, and before she had time to find someone, she got into a fight. Now, the real owner finally came out. End of this chapter.